There are times when it feels like you're not really living. You're just waiting for someone to notice you, waiting for something to change, waiting for the fear to disappear. But time keeps passing, and you stay stuck in that invisible place where nothing grows, nothing begins, and nothing ends. Like you're trapped inside a story that paused at one point and never moved forward. Maybe you learned too early how not to bother anyone, how to smile when everything inside was falling apart, how to pretend you were strong so no one would leave you. And little by little, you forgot yourself. You became that girl everyone liked, but no one really saw, the girl who stayed there, frozen inside you, afraid to grow, afraid to vanish. But there comes a time when all that waiting turns into exhaustion, a heaviness in your chest, a lump in your throat, a silent plea for change, not because you hate that girl, but because you no longer fit in that small place. Growing up isn't betraying her. Growing up is opening the door, so she can breathe, and so you can finally live. Hey, I'm Noah. This isn't a polished production, just something honest I felt like sharing today. A reflection that came to me while sitting with some of Jung's ideas, and maybe something in it will meet you right where you are. If you feel seen or understood at any point, feel free to like the video and subscribe. That way, YouTube knows this kind of space matters to you, and it can gently bring you more of it when you need it most. Sometimes you feel that heavy weight in your chest that no one else can see. It might seem like just exhaustion, but deep down, it's an old fear dressed up as protection. A fear that whispers for you to stay where you are, not to take risks, not to get hurt again. And you believe it, because you've already been hurt too many times. But without even noticing, you start shrinking inside your own soul, like a little girl trying to fit into a world that has already grown too tight around her. I know that sometimes you feel trapped in a life that looks safe, but quietly aches. It's because unconscious fear knows how to hide well. It wears the clothes of caution and good sense, but underneath, it's holding you in a frozen childhood. The eternal girl lives there inside you, that part of you that stopped in time, still too afraid to grow because growing once meant pain. Your psyche built this prison out of repressed impulses, believing it was keeping you safe, but it only left you paralyzed. And as time goes on, you start feeling that nameless sadness, that longing for something you can't even explain. Your psychic reality begins to grow heavy. On the outside, you smile and do what's expected, but inside, your heart cries out in a silence nobody hears. That's the shadow at work. Psychological repression keeps pulling you away from who you could become, making you feel like wholeness would be too dangerous. But living as half of yourself always demands a price. So you build a persona, the woman, who's always fine, who never needs anything, who never wavers, but deep inside, there's still a girl waiting to be held, who doesn't have to hide anymore. The eternal girl isn't your enemy. She's just a part of you that hasn't yet understood that becoming a woman doesn't mean giving up your tenderness. Being a woman means making space for all your parts, even the ones that are still scared. Psychic wholeness begins when you stop fighting against yourself. If today you feel like your life has grown too small for the size of your dreams, maybe it's that little girl inside you asking to be heard. Maybe it's those repressed impulses knocking on your door, reminding you that you were born to be more than fear allows. And maybe, just maybe, your freedom will begin the moment you stop hiding from yourself. When you sit beside that scared girl, take her hand and say, "I'm here. We'll go together." So tell me, how long will you keep calling protection the very prison that's held you captive the longest? There's a part of you that just wanted to be good enough not to be left behind. I can see that. From early on, you learned that being sweet, being perfect, could keep the pain away. But what almost no one realizes is that chasing perfection also tears your soul into pieces. The eternal girl is born from that wound, the girl who froze in time, trying to be what others expected, even if it meant losing her true self. Sometimes, the innocence inside you feels like a shield. It tells you not to change, not to grow, not to take risks. But growing isn't betraying who you once were. Growing is taking care of that scared little girl who got stuck back there. The ego tries to hide that wound. pushing down repressed impulses that, sooner or later, start to overflow. Every time you feel ashamed for wanting more, every time guilt weighs on you just because you thought about changing, it's that wound asking to be healed. Innocence that doesn't grow up becomes an invisible prison. It keeps you small, afraid, as if you had to apologize for wanting to be whole. But you don't have to apologize. Inside you, life is still calling. It calls in the discomfort, in the sadness without a name, in that feeling that something new is waiting to be born, feeling this isn't wrong. It's the truest sign that your inner journey has already begun, even if you can't see the path yet. The eternal girl doesn't need to disappear for you to be free. She needs to be embraced, not to keep holding you back, but to walk beside you in a new place in your story. There's a way to grow without losing tenderness. There's a way to become a woman without erasing the girl inside. But for that, you have to stop fighting yourself and start listening to what your soul has been trying to say for so long. If today it feels like something inside you is begging for space, trust it. It's not weakness. It's life. It's strength, getting ready to bloom. And I know, growing hurts. It hurts because it's real, but it also heals. It also sets you free. It gives you back what was always yours, the courage to be whole. So tell me, how much longer will you hide behind innocence, just to avoid facing the woman who's already been born inside you? There's a kind of silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the absence of meaning. It arrives slowly, like a discomfort you can't name, and starts taking up space in your days. Everything seems to be in place, yet something inside you begins to push against the walls as if growing from within. The routine no longer fills you. Rest no longer brings relief. The eternal girl, that part of you who once believed staying the same was safer, starts to feel trapped inside her own illusion. And without asking, the soul begins to whisper. These signs don't shout. They speak softly. A strange dream that keeps returning. A random phrase that strikes deep without warning. A sadness with no clear cause, but heavy, like it carries decades within it. That's the shadow moving silently, trying to crack the surface of your persona so something deeper can breathe through the opening. The personal unconscious doesn't send answers. It sends movement, images, longings, emotions that seem unrelated. But together, they announce that a part of you is tired of waiting. And the more you try to ignore it, the more the body speaks. When the soul wants to grow, it always finds a way. Often, this process feels like crisis. And in a way, it is. But not a crisis of collapse, one of birth. Your psychic reality starts, reshaping itself, like an old house that must be rebuilt before it can be lived in again. The woman you're becoming needs room, but the eternal girl still holds the keys. She fears the unknown, yet senses that something must shift. That tension isn't failure. It's maturity trying to happen, even in the chaos, even without clarity. You don't need to understand everything to answer the call. You only need to be honest about what no longer fits. You only need to look in the mirror and admit that something inside you has already changed. Even if you don't yet know who you're becoming, the soul matures like soil after the rain, quietly but ready. If you let the discomfort stay a little longer, it begins to reveal what's missing. And what's missing, most of the time, isn't something outside. It's all of you. Your longings, your emptiness, your forgotten truths. The inner journey starts like this, with a strange sense that something is being born, even while everything outside looks the same. And when that call arrives, it doesn't demand speed. It asks for presence. Slowly, you begin to realize you're not losing control. You're letting go of an old version of yourself that no longer fits. The soul doesn't want to pull you away from what you know. It wants to reconnect you with the one you were before fear took over. And that reconnection begins right in the middle of discomfort, not beyond it. The first sign of liberation isn't joy. It's unease. It's that quiet pause between who you were and who you don't yet know how to be. And as confusing as that crossing may feel, it's sacred too. Because within that in-between, between the end and the beginning, lives the possibility of a new choice. A choice made not from pressure, but from awareness. The psyche won't push you. it will invite you. And in that quiet invitation, the true path back to yourself begins. And if a part of you feels ready to go deeper, I created something for those quiet in-between moments. It's not flashy, but it was built with care. For the days when you feel present, but not really alive. For when your heart knows something's off, even if you can't name it. This isn't a solution. It's more like a doorway, one that leads back to the parts of you that got quiet over time, back to the softness, the clarity, the truth beneath all the noise. You'll find the link to this gift in the pinned comment. And if life's been feeling a little too numb, if your soul is asking for something real, go there now. You spent so long trying to outrun your pain that when you finally face it, you're not sure whether to embrace it or turn away. Meeting the shadow is like that. Realizing the thing that once looked like a threat is just a part of you that's never been heard. The eternal girl didn't appear from nowhere. She was born out of a desperate attempt to survive in a world that never held you fully. She grew in silence, shaped by fears, rejections, emotional complexes that made hiding feel safer than showing up. Now she looks back at you, afraid, yes, but also waiting. Integrating that part doesn't mean surrendering to stagnation. It means looking into the eyes of what was frozen and saying, I see you. It's easy to resent the part that sabotages, that hesitates, that holds back. But she only ever did what she knew to do. She's not your enemy. She's living proof that you once had to protect yourself before you could become whole. The ego tried to lock her away, but your soul is asking for reconciliation. Not so you'll return to being her, but so she can change with you. This meeting doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to hurt. It can be quiet, slow, deep, like sitting beside a wounded child, because that's what she is, a forgotten part of you, still scared of change because she learned early that change meant being left behind. Symbolic transformation doesn't happen when you defeat that part. It happens when you include her, when you give her a new place inside you, not as the jailer of your fear, but as the keeper of your sensitivity, your intuition, the parts of you the world once tried to erase. The fear you feel now isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're touching something real. No reconciliation comes without trembling. Inner conflict begins to dissolve the moment you stop expecting perfection from yourself. When you accept that wholeness includes contradiction, at this point, the inner journey stops being about overcoming a part of you and becomes about making space for all of you. And the shadow, when listened to, no longer needs to scream. This is where psychic wholeness is born, not as some distant idea, but as a felt experience of belonging to yourself. You begin to realize you no longer need to fight against your own heart, that you can live with all your versions, including the one who was scared, who hid, who still shakes sometimes. When the woman you are meets the girl inside you and chooses not to destroy her, but to hold her, something new is lit, a quiet strength, a kind of freedom that no longer depends on escape, but on presence. There comes a point when going back is no longer an option. Even if everything around you still asks for safety, something inside knows there's no more room to live as you did before. Crossing your own story isn't some heroic act of bravery. It's a quiet, intimate gesture that begins the moment you stop trying to fit into what no longer belongs to you. The eternal girl no longer needs to decide for you. She's carried the weight long enough for a soul now longing for maturity. This crossing marks the moment the woman takes the wheel, not to dominate, but to lead with truth. The ego still resists, of course. It fears surrender, uncertainty, the instability that comes with growth. But at this stage of your inner journey, you're no longer walking blind. You've learned the shape of your shadow, the echoes of your emotional complexes, and you don't have to run anymore. Symbolic transformation doesn't require drama, it requires presence. A presence so whole it can hold pain and longing at once, without needing to choose between them. You begin to understand that integrating the shadow isn't a single moment, but a symbolic process that unfolds slowly. It's waking up just a little more aware each day, even when confusion still lingers. It's learning to stand inside your vulnerability with both feet on the ground. What once felt like weakness now reveals itself as maturity. The woman born from this crossing doesn't apologize for feeling, doesn't shrink herself to fit old roles, and doesn't carry shame for wanting more. She knows the weight of her presence and still chooses gentleness. This new chapter isn't built on easy answers. It's made of silence, of listening, of small decisions that shift everything inside. The disowned parts of you, once seen as threats, become sources of strength. The fear that once froze you now guides. The pain that once held you back now shapes your path. You no longer have to pretend you're not feeling. Psychic wholeness doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for truth. It asks for space. It asks for surrender. Becoming who you always feared to be is, in truth, the act of no longer fearing your own light. It's stepping out from behind excuses that once protected you. It's standing up whole, even with open scars. This crossing is yours. No one else can walk it for you. But that doesn't mean you're alone, because the woman who crosses that threshold finds within herself the presence she spent so long searching for in others, her own. And if something in this video touched a part of your story, I'd really love to hear it. You can leave it in the comments, whatever came up for you. Your voice matters, and maybe your words will meet someone else who needed them too. Sometimes, just naming what we're feeling is already a step toward healing. And if you still feel like there's more to uncover, there's another video waiting for you here on the screen. Maybe what you'll find there is exactly what you didn't know you were searching for. Go ahead. If your heart says yes,